This is Cracking the Case, a deep dive into mystery and thriller. We were originally meant to host this in October, but a lot of things like natural disasters got in the way. So we are happy that we're able to host it today. But for introductions, I'll have Jennifer start things off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Stuart, and I'm really excited to finally talk with you about mysteries and thrillers. I am a branch manager at the Canton branch of the Haywood County Public Library system. We're in Western North Carolina, just about 30 minutes west of Asheville. And I do love reading mysteries and thrillers. I'm currently reading The Forgotten Girls by Sarah Bladel. Not sure of that pronunciation. And I'd say my love of mysteries began way back with Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys.
Awesome. Hi, folks. If you have not met me before, I'm Devin Waugh, the instruction librarian for NC Live, and I'm currently reading Those We Thought We Knew by David Joy, who is a Western North Carolina author, and it is a small town mystery that I'm enjoying. Huge kind of doorways for me in terms of fiction is our setting and language. I love a mystery with a strong sense of place. I love mysteries with supernatural elements, which comes from my love of TV shows like Twin Peaks and The X-Files. I love multiple perspectives and ambiguous endings. And my love of mystery and thriller started with the Philip Marlowe series by Raymond Chandler. I'm a huge fan of noir. In terms of important links for today, you will have a copy of the slides as well as a handout that we've prepared with some links to novelist support materials, genre support materials, and all the titles that we mention in the session. So I'll drop those links now in the chat in case you'd like to follow along. Here's the agenda. So in this hour and 15 minutes, we will cover a lot of ground. We'll start off with background and key titles. We'll include a lot of titles. I may not go into a synopsis of all of them just for the sake of time. Jennifer will cover managing and leading the Grounds for Murder book club, programming, and tips for other library staff leading these sorts of conversations. I'll go into a novelist demo and we'll talk about some resources in the platform for diving deep into the genre. We'll briefly touch on marketing and some ideas for displays and outreach, and then we will make sure there's time for Q&A. All right, starting off with background and key titles. So in the chat, if you'd like to share what mysteries or thrillers do you like? And it can be your favorite or just a mystery or thriller that you've read in the last year that you've enjoyed. Jennifer sharing latest Louise Penny, Scandinavian noir, Cat in the Stacks by Miranda James, Nevada Bar for a bit more grit, partial to one set in the UK, Ellie Griffiths. Murder Road by Simone St. James for the library podcast. Awesome. Psychological thrillers and mysteries, ones that keep you thinking about them for long after you're reading. Final Girl Support Group, cozy ones with humor. Nice. And some sharing not their normal genre, but looking for suggestions. And if you want to share in the chat also, what mysteries or thrillers do your patrons like? So you can share some titles or authors that you know are popular. Katie sharing my favorite this year was The Devotion of Suspect X. Sheila sharing The God of the Woods. Oh, that's on my TBR. The Maid by Nita Prose. Legal thrillers, psychological thrillers. Alice Feeney. Cozy mysteries Our patrons love historical mysteries that are a bit more intense than cozy, like Winspear, Riley Sager, nice, Richard Osman, the Jacqueline Daniels mystery series, not cozy. Most chilling chapter I ever read was in one of those. Legal and psychological thrillers are big here too. Louise Penny. Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. And we'll include those in the handout as well. I did want to kind of clarify the boundaries of mystery, thriller, and crime with this little Venn diagram of sorts. So with mystery and thriller, just to recap, it emphasizes excitement, suspense, tension. It's often high stakes scenarios where the protagonist faces imminent danger or threats. It's adrenaline pumping and intense. And there is such an emphasis on plot and emotion in thriller. An example of a thriller is Paul Tremblay's The Cabin at the End of the World. The way that mystery differs from thriller, because they're often lumped together, is mystery centers around solving a puzzle or crime, and you often get that resolution by the end. It typically involves a detective or amateur sleuth who investigates a crime or puzzling event. And then that tone can vary. So folks saying they like things that might be a little bit more cozy and lighthearted, others saying they prefer a little bit more grit. Louise Penny, for those who are already familiar, the Chief Inspector Armand Gamache series is an example of a mystery. And then in terms of crime, more of the focus is on criminal acts and their consequences and less about solving or achieving some sort of resolution. It often delves into the nature of crime itself, including the criminal's perspective, motivations, and the impact on victims and society. It can often be really gritty and realistic, exploring darker themes in the human psyche. Tana French is Dublin Murder Squad series, not Murder Club. Sorry for that error. Is an example, as well as, classics of the genre like The Godfather by Mario Puzo. So just wanted to clear up the differences and then share a couple of standalone titles that are nice gateways into the genre. So for folks who are not familiar with mystery and thriller and are looking for some titles to spotlight, here are a couple of examples from the last couple of years that have been popular. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jesse Q. Sentato. So when Vera Wong, a sharp-witted elderly tea shop owner, stumbles on a murder scene in her shop, she knows just what to do, outwit the police and solve the mystery herself. A charming mix of cozy mystery and laugh-out-loud comedy, Sentato delivers a very quirky and heartwarming tale of found family and sleuthing. So that's one that if you're looking for a new cozy mystery, it's great. The God of the Woods was mentioned in the chat. So thrown headfirst into the disappearance of a child at a summer camp. This is more than just a story of a girl gone missing. This is a story about the land, the people who live there, and the people who claim it as theirs. It's a literary thriller that is what I've heard is a very quick read for a lot of minutes. List. I have some questions for you by Rebecca Mackay. That's more of a thought-provoking literary mystery. A true crime podcaster returns to her boarding school to confront a decades-old mystery. So I included some titles that might be categorized more as literary fiction, like The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen, which was a winner of the Pulitzer Prize. It's been adapted into a show by HBO, and it's genre-wise, a spy thriller. So if you have patrons that don't think of themselves as genre readers, here are a couple of more literary fiction titles that might draw them in. Bluebird is another that I think would be a good fit for fans of literary fiction. And then in terms of gateway series, I know a couple were mentioned. So there's the Thursday Murder Club series has been incredibly popular. I'm a huge fan of Walter Mosley's Easy Rawlins series. It follows Easy Rawlins through Los Angeles, and I think the perspective that Walter Mosley brings to Rollins as an African American man in post-war Los Angeles is very interesting. Um, Joe Nesbo's The Inspector Harry Hole series is really popular for fans of Scandinavian noir. I also wanted to include the Jocelyn Green's On Central Park series. This one combines Christian fiction with historical mystery, offering readers a journey through New York City's iconic Central Park. Each novel in the series uncovers intriguing mysteries and hidden stories that connect the park's history to themes of faith, love, and redemption. And so, if you have patrons that are fans of Christian romance, which I've heard from member libraries before, this might be a nice gateway into the genre. Christian mystery is a fairly new genre. It's only about 20 years old, but that's a series that stuck out to me as a potential gateway. And then obviously Agatha Christie being a gateway with the Hercule Poirot mysteries and the Miss Marples as well. Definitely serving as the foundation for the cozy mystery subgenre. And then in terms of background, we're going to dive into some subgenres. So I wanted to explain the couple of subgenres for mystery, thriller, and crime. You can search for all of these in Novelist, and we'll show you how to do that. The first one being cozy mystery. So this is a concept that was coined in the late 20th century when various writers were producing work in an attempt to recreate the golden age of detective fiction. And Agatha Christie mysteries. The violence and maybe potential sexual content of these is downplayed, and the crime takes place in a small, tight-knit community. They all often have a focus on a hobby or a holiday. So, like, there are a lot of Christian cozy, or not Christian, Christmas cozy mysteries, knitting cozy mysteries. The main character might be a fan of crossword puzzles. So, there's often a tie in for a hobby, and cozy mysteries typically have an amateur sleuth solving the mystery. Detective mysteries, the crime eventually gets solved, or you will see the crime being solved. This genre revolves around a detective or investigator working to solve a complex crime. You see them kind of interviewing suspects, piecing together the evidence, and then leading to the eventual solution of the case. Police procedurals. This is a type of mystery that focuses on the step-by-step process of solving a crime from the perspective of law enforcement. It emphasizes the realistic and methodical aspects of police work, including investigations, interviews, forensic analysis. The story often delves into the inner workings of the police force and the challenges that officers face while seeking justice. So thinking kind of your Law and Order, your TV police procedurals, mapping onto fiction as well. With the amateur sleuth subgenre, an amateur, often an ordinary person with no professional background, takes the lead in solving a crime. So think Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote. The protagonist is usually driven by personal motives, curiosity, or a sense of duty, and the story often highlights their unique skills or perspective that aid in cracking the case. This type of mystery often has a more personal or relatable tone as the sleuth navigates the investigation while balancing their everyday life. Jennifer and I both read the Kamigawa Food Detectives this year, and it is a cozy mystery that is a bestseller in Japan, where a retired detective and his daughter have a restaurant where patrons come in asking to recreate certain dishes and kind of crack the case of recreating them. It was a really surprisingly moving title, and I think is a nice cozy that might break readers out of their comfort zone. There's also just been a rising popularity of cozy mysteries. So
Get this email out.
there's been a rising popularity of cozy mysteries. Here are a couple. Abby Collette is an African American woman who writes mysteries related to cooking. So she has a whole series of mysteries related to soul food and cooking. Soul of a Killer is one of them. And then Shady Hollow. So this is a cozy that is set in a small town with anthropomorphic characters. It combines the charm of a small town with the intrigue of Agatha Christie style whodunits. So you follow the adventures of Vera Vixen, a sharp and tenacious Fox reporter, and Lenore Lee, a raven who owns the quirky Nevermore books as they navigate the twists and turns of small town mysteries in the whimsical woodland town of Shady Hollow. Um, Another that is on my reading list is Pony Confidential by Christina Lynch. So this cozy mystery is narrated by an ornery pony trying to clear the name of his beloved former owner, Penny. It features rats, cats, birds, and dogs, and it is loosely based on the Odyssey, and includes a goat named Circe. So if you have patrons who like retellings or interpretations of classical myth and might like cozy mysteries too, this book combines both of them. Um, and then just other examples, Rhythm and Clues is a cozy mystery series set in a record shop. Thrillers. So a few of the subgenres that you can search for in novelist: legal thrillers, so centered around the intricacies of the legal system. These stories often involve courtroom drama, lawyers in the pursuit of justice. The narrative explores dilemmas, ethical boundaries, and complex relationships between the law and the characters involved. Wanda Morris is a former lawyer, and All Her Little Secrets is a novel that is a legal thriller that kind of uses some of her background as a lawyer. Um, and then I see folks sharing recommendations in the chat, which is fantastic. The Woman in the Purple Shirt by Natsuko Imamura. So it's a subtle, unsettling portrait of obsession and identity. This is a Japanese psychological thriller that peels back the layers of its unreliable narrator with very quiet menace. Psychological thriller, think like Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. This is a subgenre that delves into the complexities of the human mind, often focusing on characters' inner conflicts, fears, and motivations. The psychological depth of the characters is what's driving the narrative, making it both a mental and emotional challenge for the audience. Supernatural thriller focused on elements beyond the natural world. This subgenre features ghosts, spirits, or otherworldly beings that often create conflict or suspense. The story typically intertwines human experiences with unexplained phenomena, blurring the line between reality and the supernatural. So with supernatural thrillers, this might be a nice genre blend for patrons who like horror or fantasy. Spy fiction is a subgenre of intrigue and secrecy. Spy fiction revolves around espionage, covert missions, and the shadowy world of intelligence. Gabriel's Moon by William Boyd involves Gabriel is a amiable, unserious travel writer who is scouting his next book in the Congo when he lands an interview with Patrice Lumumba just days before his assassination. And how it's been described to me is like, imagine Slow Horses, the TV show, set in the Mad Men era of the 1960s. And so that's one that came out this year that's on my list. Crime subgenres. So here are four to search for in novelist. Rural noir. These are set in remote or small town areas. The subgenre explores the darker side of rural life. These stories often depict themes of crime and moral decay, featuring gritty characters grappling with the challenges of an unforgiving environment. Capers, this subgenre often focuses on heists or schemes, think Ocean's 11, where criminals orchestrate elaborate plans to pull off a robbery or con. Organized crime is centered on criminal enterprises like the mafia or cartels. This subgenre delves into the hierarchical, brutal world of large-scale crime. Themes of loyalty, betrayal, power, struggles drive the story, often showcasing the moral complexities of those involved. And then inspired by real events. So these are grounded in true crime. This subgenre fictionalizes or dramatizes actual criminal cases. It emphasizes authenticity, focusing on the investigation, psychological profiles, and the societal impact of the crimes. The City of the Living by Nicola Lajoie is based on a series of murders that happened in Rome in 2016, and blends the facts of the case with some creative storytelling. So, again, inspired by real events. These are going to be more on the grisly side than a cozy mystery, let's say. And I won't share too much about Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby, because we'll get into S.A. Cosby later on in the session. Now looking at themes. So themes are a way that you can search in Novelist. And here are a couple of mystery themes that I've pulled out. So proving one's innocence is an example of a theme where the character is either accused of a crime or framed, and the mystery revolves around proving their innocence. Solve the puzzle is a theme that comes up more in children's or YA mystery, like the Weston game is an example. And so if you want to search for the theme Solve the Puzzle in Novelist, you'll find titles that are more children's or YA mystery. Rookie on the Beat. So this is a theme where, as it tells you, there is a new cop or detective that has to investigate a murder. Death at the Sanatorium by Ragnar Jennison. This is a writer who is very much similar to Joe Nesbo and is part of that Nordic noir tradition. Rookie cop in this story finds himself thrust into a chilling case when a renowned psychiatrist is found dead in a remote mountain sanatorium. So very much strong sense of place, icy or chilly storyline set in Scandinavia for this one. Thriller themes. So often with thrillers, you'll find that there is an unreliable narrator. If you're talking to a patron and they tell you that that's something that they like, or they like things that are kind of ambiguous, you can search for the theme unreliable narrator. Too Good to Be True is another. So Too Good to Be True is a theme where The House Across the Lake is a great example, and a buzzy book that's come out in the last few years where the character sees this couple across the lake in this beautiful home, but all is not quite what it seems. Definitely a Rear Window type situation in that story. Behind the Iron Curtain, so this often relates to Cold War era politics and is set in the Cold War era. Beatrice Williams writes a lot of stories that would fall under this theme. They're set, Our Woman in Moscow is set in Moscow. This is a great blend of thriller and romance. So if you have patrons that like historical romance, but maybe are open to a thriller, this is a title that's good to suggest, Our Woman in Moscow. And then crime themes. So On the Run is one theme, as this theme suggests. It relates to characters that are trying to maybe evade police or capture criminal masterpieces. This is a theme that focuses on the intricacies of pulling off a complex crime. The Grand Odalisque is a graphic novel that's written by French and Belgian authors and illustrators. It involves three women who are navigating the heist of a painting in the Louvre, and it has very beautiful illustration style that's very detailed. So if you have patrons that might be interested in branching out and reading a graphic novel and they know that they already like mysteries or thrillers, this might be one to recommend. Vengeance is Mine, as the theme suggests, is related to getting revenge, and it can be either grisly and serious or funny, like How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie is a little bit more on the funny side. A key trend in the genre are genre blends. So one thing that you can do within Novelist is take the genre code GN and then search for science fiction thriller. Science fiction often has overlap with the conspiracy theme, with a heightened sense of emotion. So science fiction and thrillers often go well together. Walter Mosley, who wrote the Easy Rollins series, has written a lot of sci-fi in the last couple of years. Inside a Silver Box, which came out, I believe, in 2016, is an example. Blake Crouch, who wrote The Pines, is often a mystery writer, wrote Dark Matter. And then Jeff Vandermeer, who wrote the Southern Reach trilogy, often does a lot of genre blending in science fiction. Hummingbird Salamander came out in 2022, and this is an eco-thriller that's set in a dystopian version of our present moment. Historical romance often blends well with mystery. Here are a couple of titles. A Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem is set in Victorian England. So if you have your fans of Victorian romance at your library that are looking for a little bit of intrigue, that might be a good title to suggest. One thing that you can do that will show in the platform in a little bit is you can add in genre codes for each other. So if you want to add in and search for both mysteries and romances, you can find genre blends easily using the advanced search and novelist that way. You can also add in the genre search for romance and the appeal term for suspenseful, and that'll catch some of these genre blends as well. Now I'm going to hand things over to Jennifer.
All right, thank you, Devin. So Devin asked me to participate in this webinar because she saw some promotion for the book club that I host here called the Grounds for Murder Book Club. So I want to start with a little bit of background. Okay. So my existing book club that I inherited when I started here was kind of aging out and becoming unsuccessful. We had fewer and fewer participants, and the discussions tended to be very stilted. I tried to revamp the book club following all of our guidelines that we learn in library world. Tried to tie into movies and food things, and nothing worked. So I surveyed our library users to gather their interest, if they were interested in attending a book club, what genres they were interested in, and what times and days worked good for them. And based on the results, I was very excited that mysteries, thrillers were at the top of the list. I mean, that is what I love to read, so that was exciting to share that. So the Grounds for Murder Book Club was created in May of 2023. And one of the things that brought us together, as I use it as a little hook, because you'll see, is we all love to drink coffee. So I've used that as kind of a way to engage the participants. And we even have someone who roast their own coffee that will bring and participate and bring the coffee each time for us. We read a variety of mysteries, from cozies to dark and gritty. And we overall have very great discussions and very interesting social interactions. And what I've heard from many of the participants is that they love that they're being exposed to books outside of their normal. So that's something that they really enjoy about this book club. So this seems to be going really well. Okay. So if you would share in the chat, what is it about murder mysteries that captivates you? So I talked to a couple of the participants in the Grounds for Murder book club, and what they have said is they like the puzzles and problem solving and reading. The hunt for clues and false leads is a great challenge. They also like the intricacies of how a detective will discover who the killer is. They like the tense atmosphere of closed-door novels. And for me, like when Devin was talking earlier, I like police procedurals. And so I like that step-by-step learning how they solve a crime. And I see what some of you have said. Yes, like the eliminating the suspects, great characters. I agree on that as well too. Plot twist and the need to know the answer. I see someone said they love the name, and I have to say that I've got, because we borrow and share in Library World, so I attended several workshops on revamping your book clubs. So gathered some of this from other libraries. Okay. As I mentioned before, we select a variety of titles to read, and I do the selecting, but I do take input from staff and participants. I keep diversity in mind when I'm selecting and rotate through books that will intrigue and challenge the readers. And I hope that by doing this, that it opens the readers to different identities, points of view, and cultural experiences that are different from their own. Devin has mentioned earlier how to search with novelists, and we'll talk about that in detail in a bit, but I use novelists when I'm selecting, and I will filter the books to usually something that's published within the last 3 years, so that if we are borrowing the books, it'll be available somewhere. So I don't pick really recent, something within the last year, for example, because we wouldn't be able to get enough copies to borrow. I look at award winners, often use the Edgar Awards as a way to search, or media mentions, something that is been selected by like the Good Morning America Book Club, something like that. I use those to help select. So I have 3 books here on this screen that we read in the past year. And so the first one I'll talk about is S.A. Cosby. He is a popular regional author, and like Devin said earlier, he's a good example of regional noir. This book is dark, quite dark at times, and gritty, about 2 fathers who are searching for the identity of who killed their sons. And it's also a journey for the 2 fathers, learning to accept and love their sons along the way. The book touches on several subjects like race, hate crimes, and gay marriage. I also want to highlight, we read Magpie Murders, which is a British cozy by Anthony Horowitz, very popular here. It's an intriguing mystery within a mystery that involves both a detective and a book publisher with alternating timelines. So it's a contemporary as well as historical mystery. And I would say that the subject matters are fairly light. And I'm highlighting that because I'm going to come back to that in a moment. The third book I'll highlight is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline, I'll say Booley. I don't know how that's pronounced. This is a YA book. Typically we read adult books, but we did throw this one in because it was a suggestion from one of the participants. It's a great book. The author is Native, and the book features a biracial teen that has to go undercover to solve a murder. And the book touches on issues about race and drug use. Okay, Debbie. I think it's important to keep in touch with regional authors wherever you are. So I've included 3 regional authors from Western North Carolina. I think so I'll start with, for example, the book by Annette Sonnet Clapsaddle, Even As We Breathe. She is Native. She's from the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, which is here in Western North Carolina. And she's the first author to publish a novel from the Eastern Band. And her book, Even As We Breathe, is a historical mystery thriller that takes place at the Grove Park Inn in Asheville, as well as on the Qualla boundary. And it touches on race and poverty. Other authors that I've highlighted here, we have Wiley Cash, and his book, When Ghosts Come Home, is a murder mystery that's set on the coast of North Carolina with Sheriff Winston Barnes, who investigates a murder at a local airport. And I have to throw in a plug that one day when I get to talk to Wiley, I'm going to ask him about the ending of that, because it was all of us who read it were just have a little not happy with how he ended it. Then the last book I want to highlight here is Terry Roberts, who is from the Buncombe and Madison area. And this book, My Mistress's Eyes Are Raven Black, is a historical murder mystery with Stephen Robbins, and he is investigating a string of murders and missing people on Ellis Island. And it does have a link back to Western North Carolina. It's the second in a series. The other 2 are located in Western North Carolina. Okay. Something that we wanted to address with book clubs is handling sensitive topics. So I want to talk about what works for me. When people join this book club, I do review with them that we read a variety of murder mysteries. It's always murder mysteries because that's in our title. So it may vary from cozy to gritty and dark, and that helps set a foundation for what they can expect to read. And as we all know, difficult topics will always arise in a book club. I use facilitation techniques to encourage a welcoming group and to promote open discussion. So I feel like by following a similar format with each session, I go around the group to ask a easy question that they know to expect, so everybody is encouraged to participate, and they know that it's okay to disagree. Sometimes it's difficult. I try to be mindful when I'm selecting books, and I alternate. This is why I highlighted if something was a light subject matter versus a more difficult subject matter. I try to go back and forth so that we'll have one session that may be really intense, and the next section may be a little more lighthearted. And then if all else fails, we do have our coffee cups if we need to route the people onto a new subject. I will use that technique to, who cares for more coffee, or, something to get past that onto another subject. That's it for me. Thank you, Devin.
All right, so we will jump into using Novelist. The grab and go reading lists, which I'll show on the homepage, are a nice first stop if you're looking for recommendations. Here are some mystery and thriller recommendations grouped by age. One of the nice things about the platform is you can always find titles based on age range that are age appropriate. So for adults, there's the senior sleuth list, there's standalone mysteries, holiday mysteries. For teens, there's twisted thrillers and teen detectives. And then for ages 9 through 12, you'll see a list dedicated to that theme, Solve the Puzzle, as well as Sherlock Paws. So mysteries that are solved by an animal, as well as fantasy mysteries and others. So that's a nice place if you're just looking for a starting point on the homepage. Another place to dive a little bit deeper is to use the genre guides. These are in the quick links tab at the top. And there's the genre guides for mystery, thrillers and suspense, and crime fiction for adults. And then for teens, there's a genre guide just for mysteries, and there's a genre guide just for thrillers and suspense. And then for ages 9 through 12, there's a genre guide for mysteries and thrillers as well. What's nice about this is you get an explanation of the genre, what happens, some top themes that you can click on and immediately search to find examples, as well as some key authors to watch, and then tips for marketing to fans of the genre. So if you're looking to dive a little bit deeper and see some authors to watch and find some recommendations that way, I think these guides are great because they're doing some of that work for you. You don't have to read every single thriller, suspense novel that's come out. You can go to Novelist and look at that genre guide and find some hot authors to spotlight. In terms of finding titles for kids and teens, this came up in registration, so I did want to highlight. One thing that you can do is use the advanced search, put in the genre code GN mystery, and then add in the age range filter or even the reading level and find results that way. Jennifer and I, when we were talking about this webinar yesterday, Jennifer mentioned that she's used the reading level pretty consistently. That's a nice tool for finding titles that are reading level appropriate. Here are a couple of titles for teens and ages 9 through 12. So Tornado Brain by Kat Patrick. Frankie, a neurodivergent seventh grader, prefers solitude and order, but her world is upended when her former best friend Colette goes missing. Despite their estranged friendship, Frankie is determined to uncover the truth, diving into Colette's mysterious disappearance with sharp observational skills and a fierce sense of loyalty. Tornado Brain masterfully portrays the complexity of middle school friendships, family dynamics, and living with neurodivergence. So that is a great title to watch for ages 9 through 12 if you're looking for an example. Diamond Park by Philippe Diederich is a mystery thriller set in Texas. So when four Mexican-American teens in Houston, Texas stumble upon an old beat-up car and a treasure map hidden inside, their summer takes an unexpected turn. What starts as a lighthearted road trip adventure quickly transforms into a dangerous quest filled with secrets, betrayals, and self-discovery. Another thing that you can do is use the search GN Books for Reluctant Readers. These are titles that Novelist selects, knowing, the 11-year-old that hasn't picked up a book for leisure in a long time, or the parent that's trying to find titles for their 6-year-old who's trying to build skills with reading. So if you do that search, you can find recommendations for ages 9 through 12 and teens as well. I did that search and found these two titles. The second title, Be Not Far From Me, is a thriller set in the Smoky Mountains where the main character gets lost in Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee and needs to find her way out of the park. It's a survivalist tale, and it might be something that's good for a teen that's looking for a thriller. You can also search by theme or appeal and the story elements index and limit by age range, and I'll show you how to do that. In terms of building an inclusive collection, I did this search GN thrillers and suspense and added the appeal term own voices. Own voices is novelists' way of spotlighting authors from a mix of ethnic and racial backgrounds. Dead Girls is a series that's set in the Harlem Renaissance that centers around Black women in Harlem. This is, I think, the second in the series, but they've come out in the last couple of years. And so if your patrons are looking for a gripping historical mystery, this might be one to spotlight. Better the Blood by Michael Bennett. So this is Maori detective Hannah Westerman investigates a brutal murder in New Zealand that ties to her own family's colonial past. As she uncovers a chilling conspiracy, Hannah is forced to confront issues of justice, revenge, and cultural heritage. Better the Blood is a gripping debut crime thriller that explores racism, colonial legacy, and personal redemption. And that's a recommendation that I got from my local bookstore, McIntyre Books in Pittsburgh. If anybody's gone to them, they have a fantastic mystery and thriller section, and their lead bookseller is chock full of good reviews. So one tip that I have is using novelists, keeping up with things, but also building relationships with your local booksellers can be a nice way to get recommendations as well. And your local authors too. The story elements index I'll show you. So I'll jump into novelist in just a second, but the story elements index categorizes all the genres, subgenres, themes, and appeals that are in the resource. And it's a really nice way to get a bird's eye view and find a lot of different titles in the mystery thriller genre using specific appeals or themes. Here are examples of different mystery appeal terms. If you've used Novelist before, you can always use the appeal mixer on Browse by Appeal and use any of these combos. Violent is a mystery appeal term, but it is only used to categorize titles for adult fiction, not for children or teens. And here are some examples for style. If you have patrons that are looking for a fast pace or a strong sense of place, you can use those appeal terms in the appeal mixer and novelist, or search using the search bar. The mystery appeal terms, just a word of caution, you can use the appeal term suspenseful, but it will find you a lot of titles. So this is an example of, this is a title that's categorized with that appeal. Criminal, Cruel Summer is part of the criminal graphic novel series. The story weaves betrayal, violence, and flawed characters into a gritty, noir-inspired narrative. It is going to be adapted into a series for Amazon Prime next year. This is great for your fans of graphic novels or looking for something on the grittier side. But if you have patrons that are not into anything gritty or violent, this might not be for them. But if you use that suspenseful appeal term, you also will find A Most Agreeable Murder. So this is a very witty and charming debut that came out. Aspiring detective Miranda Temples navigates a world of high society in 1930s England. When a prominent guest at a lavish dinner party is found murdered, Miranda is determined to solve the crime despite her lack of experience, with sharp humor, eccentric characters, and a cozy atmosphere. This title is a delightful blend of mystery and comedy. So that is one way that you can search a novelist by using suspenseful, but it will cover a lot of ground. An appeal that I think is a great one to use is strong sense of place. You can also use the search bar to add locations. Like if you just want to find mysteries set in the UK, you can use the filters on the search results page, and I'll show you. Here are a couple of titles that I recommend. So The Black House by Peter May. He's a Scottish writer. They're all set in Scotland. If you have patrons that like the ability to travel and want a sense of escape in their titles, here are some that are a good fit. I know Nevada Bar was mentioned with the Anna Pigeon series. Anna Pigeon is a park ranger, and every novel in this series is set in a different national park. So if you have patrons that love going to national parks and want something gripping, that might be a title to recommend. Smilla's Sense of Snow. This is such an atmospheric, genre-defying novel. It came out in 1993, so it's many years old. But the main character is a half Greenlandic woman living in Copenhagen who investigates the mysterious death of a young boy in her apartment complex. It's nice because it's um, good for readers who like intricate plots and vivid, evocative settings. It also has a map of Copenhagen in the story, so it's nice if you have readers who are looking for kind of that engrossing sense of place. You also, on titles, if you go to the title record, can use search for more to find more similar locations, like more titles set in Scandinavia or in the UK or in Western Europe. The awards, if you go to Browse by Awards, you can find a bunch of different mystery thriller awards in the platform. We mentioned the Edgar Awards, but also here are a couple listed. And then here are some that are recent award winners from the last 2 years. Mother-Daughter Murder Night sounds like an intense title, but it is a debut cozy mystery. An unlikely duo, a mother who runs a haunted house attraction and her daughter, who's a former detective, are thrust into solving a murder. So that's kind of a nice plot. All right, we're going to jump into the platform now. List. So as I mentioned, the reading recommended reads lists are available here on the homepage. You can also go to quick links and then genre guides. Sorry about that. And then find recommendations like looking at the crime fiction genre guide. These are written by novelist staff or librarians around the country and are a great way to find recommendations. Like S.A. Cosby is listed here as a key author. And you can find the genre guides for ages 9 through 12 and teen by filtering. So if you're looking for that, thrillers for older kids, using these genre guides are great. You can also, one thing I want to show is if you go to that advanced search and you search GN mystery for the genre code, and then you just want to find starred reviews or award winners, you can use that. You can also use the media mentions feature that we talked about. So if you click and you just want to find titles that have been mentioned on Good Morning America that are mysteries, you can do that and then click search. And here are 14 mysteries that have been highlighted on Good Morning America. So The Maid by Nita Prose, Happiness Falls, and some others here. So that's a great one. If you're looking for kind of buzzy titles using that media mentions section here. If you just want to look for, let's go with GN thrillers and suspense, and we're looking for award winners for ages 9 through 12, you can add in a search that way. And this gives me 33 titles instead of like thousands of titles. And then I can narrow by publication date. For all of the recommendations that we've put together, some we've read, others I included because they've come from the last couple of years, and I highly recommend using that publication date feature to narrow by publication. Concealed by Christina Diaz-Gonzalez, I included on the slides. This is a great thriller for grades 3rd grade through 7th grade. And then you can see on the item record page, it's included in the genre guide. It's an Edgar Allan Poe Award winner for Best Juvenile Mystery Novel, and it's included in the recommended reads list for suspense. One thing that's great, as you all probably are familiar with, are the read-alikes and novelist on the right-hand side. So if you have patrons, read this book and they're looking for more, using those read-alikes is great. I also like the search for more. So if you want to search for more thrillers and suspense where the characters are Cuban Americans, you can check those boxes. And then, okay, it's only showing concealed. Um, but let's say I'm looking for thrillers and suspense that are fast paced. And then this is giving me some other recommendations that way. I can narrow down by time period. So if you just want one that's set in the 1960s, you can do that. If you want one that's set location wise in, let's see, London, England, here are 3 titles, and Peter May comes up as well. If you want to clear your search and just go back to the home page, you have to click on that logo in the top left corner, and this takes you back. One thing that you can always do, as well as I mentioned, is go to that story elements index. I think this is a fantastic kind of landing page for the platform. And if you want to dig into a subgenre, like you just want to find police procedurals and see all of the different subgenres for mystery. Let's see. Move too fast. You can see here, you can click on police procedurals and see all the police procedurals that are in Novelist. Or let's say you want to find techno thrillers. So think like Neuromancer by William Gibson, potentially. You can use that limiter and find titles from the last couple of years and narrow this list down. And maybe I want to narrow this down a little more and look at identities. So you can narrow down by a character's identity. If you want a multiracial main character, this is providing the recommendation of The Jump by Brittany Morris. And I can always clear these filters as well. All right. One thing to take a look at if you go to Browse by Award Winners, you can see some of the examples, as well as just drill into mystery and thriller and find Agatha Awards, Anthony Awards, British Book Awards, Crime Writers of Canada. So those are a couple of ways that you can use Novelist. One thing that I like to do is combine genre and appeal. So if I want to find a police procedural that has a strong sense of place, you can do that here and then find recommendations from the last few years if you're looking to zero in and find some new titles. And now I have 127 titles, but let's say if I want to zoom in and I just want to find, it's listing a couple, but if I just want to find police procedurals with a strong sense of place in Sweden, here are a couple of Nordic noirs to check out. We have a couple of tips for helping readers before we get into questions, so I do want to cover those. As Jennifer and I talked in planning the webinar, we came up with a couple of questions to ask readers, whether you're having a conversation on the desk or after a book club. One thing to start off with is asking if they prefer standalones or series. One thing that you could do in Novelist is just search for standalone titles or series. So I'll show you how to do that right now, actually. If you want to find standalones, I put in the genre code for mystery and I say SAN, it's telling Novelist, no, I don't want to find series. And so what came up first, We Solved Murders, the latest standalone mystery from Richard Osman, God of the Woods, which came up in the chat and earlier, and some examples here. So you can put in SAN for no series or SAY if you are looking for series recommendations. Another question that Jennifer recommended that I love is asking what lead characters they prefer. Do you prefer a female lead character? Do you prefer um, a male lead character? What main characters interest you, or what's a character that stuck with you long after you finished the book? And finding recommendations that way. You can put in appeals or for character in the appeal mixer, or in the advanced search, you can search for character's identity or author's identity as well. One question that has come up a lot is like, what level of intensity and graphic content do you prefer your reads to have? Knowing that if a patron's telling you that they don't like a lot of violence, like probably recommending the gritty rural noir is not the best move. What genres do you enjoy outside of mysteries or thrillers? If you can suggest crossover reads with fantasy or science fiction or even historical mysteries, if your patrons are big fans of historical fiction, that could be a great way to kind of bring people out of their comfort zone. Some other media. So I think what's great is if you talk with patrons about like what TV shows or movies they've liked recently. Knives Out being an example. There's a new Knives Out mystery that will come out next year. Creating recommended reads lists based on popular TV shows can be a great tool for Reader's Advisory. So Only Murders in the Building, Slow Horses, which is on Apple TV, or Yellow Jackets are some recent shows. You can also, in Novelist, in the recommended reads section, I'm going to jump back to that homepage and show you that. The For Fans Of section, you can find the For Fans Of list for Only Murders in the Building or for fans of Knives Out, and find some recommendations that way. So that's another great tool for integrating popular media, because we all know that a lot of our tastes are informed, not just what we read, but also what we might be watching. In terms of podcasts, I think Reader's Advisory podcasts, genre podcasts are a great way to stay up to speed with titles. Get Cozy is just about cozy mysteries. She Done It is also just focused on mysteries. Reading Glasses is a podcast that I love that covers all different genres, but they often have episodes where they cover mysteries or thrillers. Newsletters can be a great way. Present Tense is two mystery writers manage that Substack. Blood and Whiskey is another Substack. And then the Clues letter I really like because the writer of that newsletter and website is a big fan of Agatha Christie and similar mysteries, and always has good recommendations. And Madeline sharing in the chat that she loves Reading Glasses. Huge fan. Other websites to check out: Crime Reads, Novel Suspects, and Crime Writers of Color are good ones to keep up with for recommendations because they're often writers. So smaller indie authors you might find through Crime Reads or Crime Writers of Color. And I've included them in the handout. One thing to let your patrons know about for our NC Live member libraries attending is there are plenty of audiobooks in Hoopla. So we have almost the full run of the Anna Pigeon series in Hoopla. And then we have almost the full run of the Joe Pickett series by CJ Box. The Joe Pickett series follows Wyoming game warden Joe Pickett as he navigates the wild, rugged landscapes of the American West. That's a great series for fans of Yellowstone, the TV show. And then here are some other standalone mysteries, like Isabel Allende's Ripper, or The Maltese Falcon, or James Lee Burke, The Wayfaring Stranger. He won an award for another title that I included earlier in the slide deck. But here are just some examples. Briefly want to cover some marketing tips because this came up. Outreach ideas. So reach out to your local bookstore. Also reach out to publishers. I've noticed that cozy mystery publishers are always game to partner with libraries. So Burke County Public Library earlier this year did a cozy mystery event with two authors where they had games and prizes and author talks and book signings. And so that's a nice way. Reach out because the worst thing that happens is somebody might say no. But oftentimes you'll be pleasantly surprised by who's going to say yes. I'm glad that Jennifer mentioned in the chat that S.A. Cosby is a great speaker if you're looking for an author visit. He's based in Virginia. So for our North Carolina libraries, he's not a far drive away. Inviting those regional authors, but then also looking at new advanced reader copies and contacting authors that have upcoming releases that they may be looking to promote is a good strategy. Following writers groups can also be a nice way to potentially either, you know, build a connection or offer to provide space in the library for events, but really kind of working with your local literate community can be a nice way for outreach. Tips for displays. I'm a big fan of embracing the season and the coziness of winter, and I really loved this cozy winter night display that blends a thriller with a cup of cocoa and a bowl of popcorn and just kind of settling in and being comfy. I think often with a mystery thriller, there's so much under the sun that if you focus on a subgenre or a theme or an appeal, that's a nice way to draw readers in. If you've noticed in this entire webinar, we have not said James Patterson's name. James Patterson's great, but those big authors do not need discovery. And so I think it's important in displays to promote lesser known authors and read-alikes for mainstream titles and use novelists to find those read-alikes. Another thing that's great is just highlighting book club picks because patrons might have their own book clubs with friends or attending library book clubs. But if you have some shelf talkers or, a display of book club picks, that's a nice way for patrons to find engaging titles. QR codes next to book displays. One thing that you can always do is create a QR code to a recommended reads list and novelist. Those recommended reads lists, like all content and novelists, has your library's proxy information. So if a patron's in the library, they won't see your login screen. If they're outside of the library, they'll just see your login screen and enter their library card number and PIN. Targeting readers with print. So we have a system set up with our vendors where you can order promotional materials from us and they create them and send them to you for free. So if you want bookmarks to promote novelists to include in holds or on the service desk, you can go to our website and either download those or order them. They're printed, they're glossy. The vendors do all the heavy lifting and we just kind of work as the middleman. Linking your catalog to novelists. So if your library has your catalog linked to novelists, yay, that's awesome. That's a great way to promote it to patrons because then they can see exactly what's available in the library and they can kind of explore their own taste in the platform. So for your diehard readers of this genre, encourage them to use novelists to explore their tastes. For libraries that don't have their catalog linked to novelists, that's something I've included the support email to get that started if that's something of interest. But I think that's a great e-resources marketing tool. All right, and now we do have time in terms of getting in touch with us. I've included our contact information if you'd like to reach out to us after the webinar, either Jennifer or myself, but we do have time for questions.